In these strange times when just living our lives can put so much pressure on us, more and more people are reaching out for professional therapeutic help. However, it's often said that we are our own best therapist. With that idea in mind, a few months ago, I put a video up teaching you how to create a positive environment in your own mind to improve and maintain your mental health. In this one, I'm going to take that a step further and break down some of the basics of personal change. Let's do it. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Tim Box. I'm a mind coach, and for the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping people to get control of anxiety. Now, in my opinion, when we're struggling and we can't see the light, there's nothing like talking to the right professional, getting heard, receiving some expert advice, and perhaps most importantly, getting a fresh perspective. We should never be afraid to reach out for the help we need. However, let's not forget that even during a therapeutic process with a professional, it's us that has to make the change, and there's a lot we can do for ourselves by approaching the problem in the right way. So in this video, I'm going to outline 5 basic steps that can make all the difference when it comes to helping us make those personal changes and assist us in getting back in control of our own mental health and emotional well-being. I'll often see clients who have a really strong idea of what they don't want, but not so much idea of what they do want. They know they don't want to feel so anxious or depressed, but when I ask them how they'd rather feel, they kind of go, I don't know, I haven't really thought about that. This is because it's really easy to have such a strong belief that we'll never actually get past this, that none of our process is going towards plotting a course out the other side. We decide we don't want to feel how we feel now, and that's about it. But that's like writing a list of what you want from the shops that just says not bread. If we can set a positive target for the work we're doing to improve our mental and emotional well-being, then we're giving ourselves a much better chance of getting somewhere of value. Not only are we offering up clear directions to our subconscious, enabling that part of our mind to plot a course, but we're also encouraging ourselves to conceptualize what this change will look like and what it would mean for our everyday existence. It's amazing how often the main reason for getting stuck where we are is because we haven't fully accepted and processed what the realities of change might be. Remember, that which we focus on grows. So if we're just trying to not feel anxious, we're going to do a lot of checking to see if we still do, which in turn creates anxiety. If instead we set our goal as confident, calm, relaxed, or something that clearly directs us towards a positive emotion, and if we work out the situations we want to feel that way, we're much more likely to get a great result because now we're actively moving towards something good rather than just running away from something bad. Now, when I started listing those more positive emotional responses just then, you might well have become very aware of a part of you suggesting that you can't just feel that way in those given anxiety-inducing situations. Good. Now you're starting to interact with the part of your mind that is creating the response and has set up the barriers that block you from your change. As soon as we set a goal, we very quickly find out if we're going to run into anything on the way there, or if there's some currently held belief that blocks us. The particular barriers we're talking about take the form of subconscious objections, reasons why the target might look good, but we can't currently get there. Think of these as the reasons why we currently do what we do or feel how we feel. And before you say you don't know the reason, you absolutely do. You just might not be instantly consciously aware of it. This might be because you've not thought about things in this way before, or it might be because you long ago dismissed those reasons as invalid, even though it's those thoughts that still hold you back. These reasons will normally come from childhood, when we were naive and helpless to potential threats. Whenever we came unstuck in a given situation, that experience may well have contributed to an idea that we can't handle life's challenges. We might have ended up with a part of our mind creating excessive anxiety surrounding any similar situation because we no longer feel safe there. Also, as a child, we're inevitably at the mercy of the attitude displayed by our parents, who are pretty much teaching us everything about the world and our place in it. So, did mum and dad have hang-ups and insecurities? Were they anxious or depressed? Did they give you the idea that the world is a scary place? Or maybe they were just a little hard on you or never quite forthcoming enough with praise and love, giving the young version of you the idea that you'll never quite be good enough. Your mind always has a reason for triggering a certain emotional response in a certain situation, and understanding why it's doing that is a huge step towards changing it. The reasons won't always seem logical or valid to the experienced, resourceful adult you are now. However, don't just dismiss them, because understanding them and acknowledging them enables you to relate to that part of your mind, and hearing its concerns will enable that part to hear you when you want to change things. You'll often hear certain corners of the therapeutic community dismiss or reject cognitive methods of change. And it's certainly true that for most of us, trying to reason our way out of our emotional difficulties doesn't bring a great deal of success. However, in my experience, our lack of success when it comes to reasoning with our subconscious responses isn't because it can't be done, it's because we're simply stopping short of what would be required to create a change. It'd be a mistake to assume that because our responses often seem illogical, that must mean they're irrational. Irrational means without reason, and it's important to remember that our mind always has a reason for its responses. If we can accept that reason and understand the motivations behind the response, we can often quite easily work our way through the other side and inspire a different one. In practical terms, what this means is that if we feel vulnerable and anxious in a situation that in our opinion shouldn't warrant that response, then we need to allow that part of our mind to realize why we're not actually under threat. What's different about the situation now compared to when we learnt this response? For example, that fear we learnt from our parents. Perhaps as an adult with our own ideas and experiences, we're now in a position to recognize that our parents weren't infallible and were capable of making mistakes and having their own hang-ups and insecurities. Perhaps we can allow that part of our mind to realize that this isn't actually our fear, we're just carrying someone else's. Another example would be my social anxiety when I was younger. At that time in my life, it made sense to be afraid of social interaction. More often than not, at that particular phase in my school life, it would most likely end in a negative experience for me. As I progressed and got older, certain elements in the equation changed. I was no longer surrounded by people I didn't really see eye to eye with, so there was less immediate danger of rejection. Also, now I was an adult, I had autonomy over my choices, so if I ever did find myself in a room with people who all disliked me and were keen to let me know, I could very easily choose to leave and go somewhere else. I couldn't do that when I was in my classroom at school. Perhaps most importantly, I was able to recognize that it was no longer life or death whether or not people liked me. I was able to accept the idea that I would meet some that did and some that didn't. Either way, this was no threat to my happiness anymore. It was the ability to first understand why I was feeling anxious and then why I didn't have to that helped me upgrade my responses and evolve past that period of high anxiety. All the time I was telling myself that this anxiety was irrational and didn't make any sense, I was failing to meet that part of my mind on its own level, and as a result my conscious and subconscious were disconnected and pretty much at odds. So you knew this one was coming at some point. It wouldn't be a tin box video without some mention of being kind to yourself. The simple fact is that even when your conscious and subconscious seem to be pulling in opposite directions and completely failing to understand each other, you're still on the same team, and funnily enough, still working towards the same goal, happiness. How you go about encouraging a change in your subconscious responses plays a huge part in your chances of success. If you try to berate and bludgeon yourself into emotional evolution, you will create the opposite effect. You'll just feel worse about yourself and less able to cope. If you can show yourself a little kindness and take the time to listen to what your mind is telling you without negative self-judgment, you take away all the bad feeling that would otherwise only limit your capacity for change. Always remember that change is a process, and in the vast majority of cases there are downs as well as ups. The progress chart for recovery doesn't tend to look like a ski slope climbing at a smooth and predictable rate. Most of the time it looks more like a mountain range with peaks and valleys. But if that's the way it plays out, then go with it. Because as long as for the most part we're climbing, then that means we're heading in the right direction. And there's no shame in taking a step backward at times so we can take the next step forward with surer footing. If we extend our self-kindness to include a little bit of patience and grant ourselves the praise we deserve for each improvement, then it's surprising how often we find some momentum and the good days start to outnumber the bad. Most of the time, our attempts at personal change go little further than trying to ignore the bad feelings and responses, hope they go away, and if not, then throw a little bit of self-castigation into the mix. In truth, if we can decide what the change is that we want, understand why it hasn't happened already, and then focus on why it now can, as long as we're positive and patient with ourselves, we can usually find our way there. Whilst it's hard to do little more than give a brief overview in a short YouTube video, and what I talk about on the channel is in no way designed to be a replacement for professional therapeutic help, never underestimate what we can achieve in terms of getting back in control of our own thoughts, feelings, and responses when we approach it in the right way. But hey, what do you think? What are you doing in terms of personal change that you're finding effective? What step has brought you the biggest positive shift? Let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, then put those in the comments too, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. I hope this video has been of value. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. Remember, I'm also now doing a weekly live Q&A every Friday at 6 p.m. London time, where you can ask me your anxiety related questions, so please join me for that. Also, watch out for the members area coming soon, where I'll be adding video tutorials of my full system for change with extra insights and exclusive live streams. But that's it for now. I'm Tim Box, Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.